So our next team we're going to be going into is the Los Angeles Kings. This is a team that has relatively quite a bit of upside, would you have to say?
Yeah.
Let's just get right into it. So for the line breakdown, the first line, you have Anze Kopitar. Very good player still. 34 years old, still producing at a decent clip. 81 games played, 19 goals, 48 assists for 67 points. Then you have Adrian Kempe, 70 games played, 35 goals, 19 assists for 54 points. And then you have Kevin Fila, who they got from Minnesota, correct?
Yes.
He had a good year last year. 82 games, 33 goals, 52 assists for 85 points. So I think that's a pretty good first line. That's more towards the top end of the league for first line talent. You have second line. You have Trevor Moore, 81 games played, 17 goals, 31 assists for 48 points. You have Philip Deneau for 79 games played, 27 goals, 24 assists for 51 points, and you have Victor Arvidsson for 66 games played, 20 goals, 29 assists for 49 points. That's a very good point per game production for a second line. I mean, no complaints for their top six really for me. What about you?
No. I mean, besides Kopitar's age, you always wonder where a player starts dropping off, right? Obviously,
Right.
Kopitar's been pretty solid. He's continued his good point production throughout the past couple of seasons and whatnot. I think that this year, I expect him to still be the same, right? Especially with the addition of Filia. I think that it'll keep that line sprightly, and he doesn't have to carry the load by himself, right?
No.
With a player that's 34, he's got two young guys on the wing, so he can kind of hang back a little bit, play a little bit higher, maybe in the zone, let those two guys grind it out a little bit more than he does. Whereas before, when he was in his younger years, he was a guy that grinded out a lot. You always saw the big body, always carrying, always going deep. Not saying that he's not going to do those things, but it's not necessary for him to be the one that does.
Yeah, not night in, night out.
Exactly.
So, and then, I like Philip Deneau and Victor Arvidsson when he's healthy. He's very solid. Trevor Moore had a decent year. Like, I think, having guys over like 48, 51, 49, so essentially 50-point guys, right?
Yep.
Around that range. So I think that's a very good second line. Your third line, you have Alex Iafallo? I think
it's Iafallo.
Iafallo.
Yep.
79 games played, 17 goals, 20 assists, 37 points. That's a very good production for your third line. Then the number 2 overall pick, Quentin Byfield, 19 years old, 6'4", kind of that Kopitar body type. 40 games played, 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points. Not great, quarter of a point per game. You have Arthur.
19. But he's 19.
Exactly. Arthur Calliev, 21 years old, 80 games played, 14 goals, 13 assists for 27 points. Now, I think the big thing here is Byfield needs to take the next step.
Yep.
He needs to be the guy that really kind of starts developing. And I know he's only 19, so I'm not saying next year he's got to be a all-star. But we need to see probably maybe instead of like a quarter of a point per game, maybe half a point a game.
Yeah, I want to see him around the 30 plus point this season coming up.
Yeah, because you just needed him to see that next step. Like around 30 points, I think would be a very good season for him. And then you have your fourth line rounded out with Carl Grundstrom. 54 games played, 9 goals, 6 assists for 15 points. Then you have Blake Lizotte. 70 games played, 10 goals, 14 assists, 24 points. And then you have Brendan Lemieux. 50 games played, 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points. Very productive fourth line. Anything to say with the forwards to this unit and what you'd want to see from them, or how do you predict them to produce?
I mean, the top 2 lines are going to be the top 2 lines, right? The bottom 2 lines. They're not good being here, right? They definitely need to take a step. You have 2 very young players on that. What Cap Friendly has as their third line with Bayfield and Calliev. I believe they definitely need to take that step up. I mean, Arthur definitely, did his thing. It looks like he took his step up last season, and he's almost at 30 points. and they played relatively decent minutes, 12 minutes on average, and I think that this is a make or break line for them. The third line is going to be the make or break. Their top two lines are going to perform. They're going to be shut down here or there, whatever, and the third line is the one that's going to have to carry their more of their offense. And what I mean by that is when you have the top two lines being shut down, like against a Colorado, that has a solid defensive core, or even an Anaheim who now has improved their defensive core, you're going to need that third line to really step their game up and be a little bit more productive if you really want to see Los Angeles take any type of steps forward and getting back to the promised land like they used to be when they were winning the cup. So I think that line is going to determine how their season goes.
Agreed.
Whether Bayfield and Calliev can make that step. Because Calliev, I mean, considering he's 21, he had almost 30 points last season. If the center can get up to like 30 points and Calliev can get closer to like 40 to 50 points on the wing, I think that they'll be not a contending team, but a definitely playoff-bound team.
Yeah, I think they'll be playoff team with the stuff front. So I think they got, if Byfield takes the next step, and that's the big thing, that's going to be important for this franchise. They need that Byfield pick to really be good.
Yep.
He has all the tools to be successful. He just needs to fine-tune them.
Yep.
Let's get into the defense here. You got Michael Anderson, 23 years old, 57 games played, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. You have Drew Doughty, who is currently injured. Let me just make sure. Out for the season. So he's not going to be there. That's a big loss. Mm-hmm. You have Alexander Edler. He's solid for what he is. I've seen Edler play quite a bit. He's 36 years old, a little long in the tooth. 3 goals, 16 assists for 19 points and 41 games played. Matt Roy, 27, 67 games played. 2 goals, 19 assists, 21 points. Not bad for that. Probably like a bottom. I wouldn't say bottom 2, but yeah, he's okay in your top 4. And then you have Sean Walker. He's out for the season as well. Holy crap!
Yeah.
6 games played, 0 goals, 2 assists, 2 points. Then you have Sean DeRizzi, 23 years old, 64 games played, 3 goals, 24 assists, 27 points. That's a good point production from your point. Now, compared to some of the other teams we've watched in the Pacific or read about, not as great as defensive production. I mean, Drew Doughty is obviously the closest with almost a point per game, but he couldn't stay healthy. Let me look at the healthy scratches here. You got Tobas Bonfont, 21 years old. He played in 70 games played, and he was a 0.11 points per game. So it's just their defense looks rough. I don't know. I'm trying to look here down the minors if there's somebody that's worth.
I mean, Spence came in last season for 24 games. He had a decent point production. I mean, it was 2 goals, 6 assists. The key thing was he was even on his plus minus, right? So it isn't too crazy. He can hold his own. He is 21 years old, so you're hoping that this season maybe he takes that step defensively and becomes a little bit more of a presence on the ice.
You got Jacob Marvier, right? 23 years old, 6'2", a little bit bigger of a guy. 19 games played last season. Was that 0 goals or 2 assists? About that. So 0.11 points per game. I think one of these guys, if they can develop, maybe it's something. You know what I mean? But it's hard to predict, honestly, with this group. I don't think besides there's no one super high drafted, right? Yep. 95th is the highest.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any highly touted prospects. Besides that, maybe some guys down here.
Forward wise, they have Jack Hughes. Who I think that they may introduce him this season just to get a little bit of a taste, maybe a couple of games. I definitely think he'll be in the preseason, band or whatnot. just to kind of see what he does. Obviously, I believe his brother is the one that plays for the Devils.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. The Hughes brothers.
Right. So I believe that you look at him as a possible call up, or at least in that range, because he's one of those guys that you expect a lot from, right? Just based off of what his brother did for the Devils.
They have a 6'8" defenseman. I don't give a crap if you can't skate. Call him up.
Play him.
Play 6'8".
Sparks. That's what you need. Sparks.
Yo, dude. Listen, not to cut you off. That's crazy. 6'8". Yo.
They just drafted him this year. Let's see what they do with him. Again, they are
I like that.
They are in a scenario where these prospects may have to grow quickly, right?
Yeah.
Because you do still have two very good offensive threatening lines, and the top two lines of the top six, but your defense is taking a big hit with the loss of two key defensemen. And now you have to kind of start looking around. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't start, that you should start a reset or anything like that, but you have some guys that you may want to take a look at and see where they are. Maybe try to see if you get them in the AHL. And again, I've said this in previous shows. It's very important how your NHL team and your AHL team mirror each other in order to prepare the guys that are in the AHL, especially the young draft picks that you bring on in. Especially, if you get them into the AHL and have them start playing games and so on and so forth, to prepare them to possibly make a difference coming in as a fill-in. Maybe they come in as a fill-in and impress or do something crazy and earn a roster spot. You know what I mean? So yeah, they're kind of the wild card. Them, I do not know where they're going to go with their defense, but there's a lot of downside right now for them.
Yeah, I think the defense is just so up in the air. I don't know. I don't know. Some of these guys could be fantastic prospects and really show out in the Ontario Reign, and maybe they step up and do well. But then there also could be some of these guys just aren't ready yet, and do you really want to expose a young player and destroy their confidence too early? So I think that's kind of a balancing act you have to do. Does this guy have the mental makeup yet to really handle failure at the NHL level? Because some guys, I believe, get destroyed by getting called up too early.
Yep.
So that'd be an interesting situation to monitor. I think these are guys I look at LA as a Bruins fan. I'm like, hey, we got Mike Riley. We have other guys. Hey, you want them? Yeah. Here, take them for free, please. I think, all jokes aside, it'll be interesting to monitor how they go from here. Now, goaltending. Jonathan Quick, 36 years old, had a pretty good season. 46 games played, a 2.59 goals against, a 910 save percentage, 23 and 13 win-loss record. Cal Peterson had a horrific year. He had 37 games played. He was supposed to start, by the way. He was supposed to be the new starter. He was the promised land for these guys. But 37 games played, 2.90 goals against, and 895 save percentage, 20 wins and 14 losses. Peterson was rough. And he's supposed to be the goalie of the future. And Jonathan Quick's not so fast. So if this LA team wants to go anywhere, Cal Peterson has to return to form. He has to return to being a very good goalie, because you don't want to be relying on Jonathan Quick night in, night out at this stage in his career. He's 36, but he's a very old 36. Especially with his style of play, where it's really reliant on acrobatics and flexibility. You can't demand him to be night in, night out that goalie. Mind you, when he played in the playoffs this past postseason, he was phenomenal. I don't know the statistics right off the top of my head, but I believe it was pretty crazy. Let me look here. Playoffs, yeah, he had... Well, okay, it wasn't as great as I remember, but he had a 904 save percentage, 3.43 goals against in 7 games played. But there were some games in those series I remember he absolutely stole. I think Jonathan Quick has quite a bit of upside. He has a bit of upside coming in as that backup goalie with some veteran experience in the playoffs. But at this stage in the career, you need a younger goalie like Cal Peterson to really step into that role and take it from him. 910 save percentage on a season. That's solid. That's a very, that's an average NHL starter. But, I mean, what are your thoughts about their goaltending situation?
I mean, they're in need of a backup, something to fall on. Pedersen definitely needs to step his game up and get back to form, because currently at this point in time, it's not looking good, right? If Quick isn't gonna be the elite superstar that he has been for them, it's not gonna be good if Pedersen stays where he is right now, right? So he definitely needs to solidify his position. And then even their the goaltenders in their minor league system, they can't even cut it in the AHL. They're having very difficult seasons down there.
So like to kind of go into detail about Pedersen, right? 11 games in 18-19, 924 save percentage, 2.60. But obviously smaller sample size, right? LA Kings 2020, 8 games played, 922 save percentage, 2.64 goals against, small sample size. Then he gets a little bit more of a backup role, right? 36 games played, 911 save percentage, 2.89. That's a solid, that's solid numbers. But then last season he fell off the wagon with an 895 save percentage and 2.89 goals against. Like, if he returns to form and even gets back into those 910s, I mean, then you're looking at an average tandem to me in the NHL. But I don't see, like you here with their goaltending prospects, I don't see anything wild.
No. I looked into those guys and their numbers in the AHL are hard to swallow, let alone bring them into the NHL. It just does not look good at all.
Yeah, like with the Ontario Reign, this guy had an 89 save percentage in the season. In the playoffs, he did a lot. No, I'm sorry, he had a 903 save percentage in the A. Playoffs, oh Jesus, 829.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not so good. I mean, there's not like, and he was the highest draft pick out of all of these guys, and sometimes that's not always indicative of how good these guys are. But I mean, just looking at it here in the ECHL, he did okay. Ontario Reign did awful for Ingram. Let's go ahead and rock. Yeah, there's just, he played for St. Cloud. Hey. In 3 games played right here from coming from St. Cloud, you had a 951.
I need you to calm
951.
down. I need you to calm down.
That's the future.
Negative.
It's the future. No, but like,
went to St. Cloud.
But all jokes aside, it looks like he might be a decent backup someday. He's way too young to tell. I don't think you call up a 24. Like, you probably wait a season or two for him. Plus, he's older too. He's an older goalie playing in the NCAA, so it's like I hate to say it this way, but like when I look at a guy that's older, like in his mid-20s in the NCAA and he dominates, I'm like, like how is that? Like, you're kind of a man at that point playing against boys, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know how much stock I can put into that. There's a 6-year age gap against some of those players. But yeah, there's nobody right there in the goaltending that really kind of comes out to me. That's fantastic. I mean, they have Lucas Parik. He looks like maybe he could turn into something. Oh, he played for the Rapid City Rush. Obviously a legend then. Hey,
Rapid City.
That's an LG joke there. But he struggled last year in Ontario, 881. I mean, yeah, I think these guys are too young though. Like, to be fair to these younger guys, 2021, gotta give them time. It's just, usually goalies don't come into their prime until they're 25, 26.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I'm looking at these guys, and, he did decent in where he was in juniors, but getting back to the Los Angeles Kings, I mean, I see them maybe taking a step back this year.
I 100% agree. I think they're gonna. I think they might end up taking 2 steps back. As far as like their defense and their goalie is concerned or whatnot, I don't really see them doing too much of anything. I see them, if anything, dropping a couple of spots, maybe down to like 5th, maybe in their division, 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
I don't see them staying at 3rd. Again, their defense being injured, not too many replacements for them, and then their goalie situation is kind of concerning. If Pedersen doesn't get back into form, yeah, it's going to be one of those situations where you're just going to start seeing them fall, and not being as competitive as you would hope with that top line, the top 2 lines. So it's a bad scenario for them. But obviously you want them to do well. You want all teams to do well, so it can be really competitive for all the teams and really get, like the best out of all the teams and best competition. But yeah, I see them dropping down to like fourth or fifth in their division. As far as the conference goes, I see them falling off. I mean, in the conference they were sixth, right behind Edmonton, but I see them falling down to like eighth. Yeah, I think I see them falling down to like eighth.
So I'll start with, because I think the division's far more important because it kind of direct correlation. But well, not always wild card.
Well, not for them because these guys are not going to be playing for one of the top three spots, right? They're going to be playing for a wild card position, in my opinion, if that.
I see them finishing possibly 9th or 10th.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see 8th. I could see 8th or 7th if the goaltending is like if Peterson comes back to form, different conversation. Yeah. Right, but it is kind of worrisome on having a below a 900 save percentage because like it either goes one or two ways. Either he bounces back or his confidence is so shattered unless he changes sceneries, he's just not going to be the same guy. I mean, like guys like that in my head that remind me would be like a guy like Cam Talbot, like in the Oilers, right? Like he was horrendous for a couple seasons, then he gets traded, fresh start, does well again. Yeah, I mean, in the division, I think there's a far better team. I think Calgary's better, Edmonton's better. I think Vancouver will actually be better than them probably. I don't know about Vegas. I think maybe Anaheim. I don't know. I think around 4 or 5 for me with Los Angeles. I think they're just on that fringe of being like a wild card bubble team.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I think for me that's like 4 or 5 in the division.
Yep.
All right, so before we go, anything else you have to add?
No, I mean, obviously this is one half of the division. And so far from what we see on the one half of the division that we've covered, you have some obvious upside to like 2 teams. A wild horse in a third, which is Anaheim. And then you look at Los Angeles, where you're like, oh man, they have a flat tire or 2, and you don't
for 5,
right? So
even the spare is flat,
right? So it's kind of like, hey, are we gonna? Is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work? Because I don't believe that they made any real notable changes this season. They made 1 or 2, but again, it was to the forward situation. Which, okay, cool. Again, the top 2 lines, they got a couple of players, obviously, right? And but the rest of the team, the defense, I mean, what are you really doing?
It's hard to say, and like for me, I'm going back to this roster. I think if Byfield takes a step up, right? If he improves, if Calliev keeps improving, Iafallo, he does what he does. Like maybe we're looking at a team that I'm not saying Calgary or Edmonton type scoring, but you're seeing a little bit more middle of pack, a little bit more production. Maybe you could see them get in a wild card spot if Cal Peterson turns it around. I just think that decor being so gutted, that's going to be difficult to survive. So that's why I'm so down on them as of right now. So